Ready to Cook with Politics and How It Affects You. And I am back with our lovely legal counsel, Rodney Ramsey. And I just want to let you know that we are maybe be saying certain things. We're going to talk about the executive order by the governor today. But if someone has a counterpoint, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to have you come in. I think Rodney would love to have you come in and talk to him about why you guys might disagree. But anyway, I'm just talking to him today because he's here and he knows a lot about the Constitution. And so we're going to talk about the executive order that Governor Abbott had put out on March 29th, and it was suspending 5 articles of the Code of Criminal Procedure and 2 articles of the Government Code. Take it away, darling.
Yeah, the executive order G813, basically the governor had taken it upon himself to suspend 5 articles of the Code of Criminal Procedure and 2 articles of the Government Code. And right off the bat, I have a problem with that because I don't think the governor has constitutional authority to suspend law, even in times of emergency.
Does it say that in the Texas Constitution?
Oh, well, okay. We have. It's just like everywhere else. We have 3.
Well, no, I'm just I'm not an attorney, but I just people.
No, it's
watching.
that banging on the table he was getting on for.
I can't help it. You make me really passionate about the topic. Okay, go ahead.
Separation of powers doctrine's pretty clear.
Okay.
You know, the governor can't write law. The governor can't suspend law. He can't. That's the legislature's job.
Okay.
And even in this one, in Article 1703. Talks about people getting a personal bond, the PR bond is what it's called. If you're in jail and you're under accusation, even if you've been indicted, you're still innocent until proven guilty. Well, if the government's not prepared within 30 days to go to trial, the attorney has the right to file a petition for writ or application for writ of habeas corpus to bring them into court and say, Judge, it's been more than 90 days, we'd like to have a PR bond.
Okay.
And 99% of the time you get one unless there are extenuating circumstances involving violence or a threat to the community, danger to the community or a victim.
Okay.
But most of the time we just get the PR bond. Well, the governor said, we're not going to let you do that anymore.
Okay. But did that have anything to do with COVID-19?
No.
I mean, is this something...
No, I can't imagine what it would have to do with COVID-19 because you would think you would want people out of a jail. Right? Now, violent offenders, they may not be entitled to a PR bond, but the fact is he suspended all PR bonds. So that, in fact, he hereby, the language says, I hereby order that no authority should release on personal bond any person previously convicted of a crime that involves physical violence or threat of physical violence, or any person currently arrested for such a crime that's supported by probable cause. I think had he not said, I hereby order, if he had been suggestive to the court, then that was fine. But when the governor orders the judiciary to act in a certain fashion, that's a clear violation of separation of powers, plain and simple.
So why hasn't the judiciary done anything about it?
Well, to go against the governor, they can. They certainly can. I think that the writs of habeas corpus should be filed. If there aren't extenuating circumstances, they could get the bond done anyway. But the Article 17151 said, is hereby suspended to the extent necessary to prevent any person's automatic release on personal bond because the state is not ready for trial.
Okay.
Now, that's a totally separate big hammer because these aren't people that are necessarily charged with violent crimes. This means anyone that's sitting in jail that's been there for 90 days that can't make bail, the governor just ordered the courts, don't let them out on a PR bond.
But I thought that, like in Dallas courts, in the Dallas jail, and I thought Ellis County jail, they were trying to, I thought I heard they were letting people out because they wanted that to be something that would help with the spread.
I have no idea.
I'm not sure, but maybe I'm confused on that. But I know that even some of my police officer friends are not necessarily arresting people they typically would because of many things that are happening.
Well, the underlying reason or thought process involved in the governor suspending the law is irrelevant. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because he doesn't have the constitutional authority to do that.
Right.
People will say, and everybody always says, well, he can't do that. Well, he's already done it. So the real statement is he can't legally do that.
Okay, all right.
It violates the 8th Amendment of the federal Constitution because bail is deemed denied. Also, Article 1, Section 11 of the Texas Constitution. It violates several different sections of the Constitution, and not just that, it violates the Texas and federal due process. In other words, it's just, you don't get to say, I know you're in jail and you can't post your bond, the state's not ready for trial, but you're going to have to sit there. Because the law says that we can file that application. The judge doesn't have to grant it, but typically, unless there are some aggravated circumstances, they're going to grant it because the state's usually the state doesn't protest it. They won't agree to it, of course,
Okay.
but they won't necessarily object to it. It's problematic on several levels, not just on due process and everything else, but
It said there were five different laws that he suspended. What else was that? Was that the one, or is
that's
there
the one? Yeah, that's the one I'm talking
the one
about
that's-
today. There are several sections of the law that he claims to have suspended.
But I'm still trying to figure out why. I think we need to have someone come on and talk about why, because I don't think anybody would understand.
Well, I don't.
I am a journalist. I have to ask why.
No, it's
this
a good
is my
question.
job.
The answer is no one knows. I mean, you can't. How does suspending an individual citizen's constitutional right to file for a PR bond,
And tell me what PR means again.
personal recognizance? It
Okay.
means you don't have the money, you don't have cash money to post a bond.
I went to jail. I don't have to sit there for more than 90 days if I don't have the money, as long as I didn't murder someone or something like that. Is
Typically,
that pretty much a layman's terms?
And majority of the cases, I'm afraid, are drug cases anyway. So,
Right.
but yeah, if after 90 days, we all do it. Everybody does it. We file for the writ, and they get out of jail. They have a bond, but it's called a personal recognizance bond. They'll set it at whatever amount,
Okay.
20,000, 30,000, whatever they want to put it. And if the person violates the bond, they just like any other bond, they revoke the bond, they bring them back to court, and we start over. But the fact is,
You have a right.
I can't, just like you, understand how denying a person's right to file for habeas corpus has any effect whatsoever on the COVID-19. Where does this come from?
Maybe this was like just a separate thing that had nothing to do with COVID-19.
Well, the section of the government code I talked to you earlier, 433, or I've got it in here somewhere, where he's claiming to have the authority to act. There we go. 418.016A of the government code permits the governor to suspend provisions of any regulatory statute prescribing the procedures for conduct of state business.
Okay.
State business.
Okay.
If strict, and he's using a section that was actually designed and implemented for areas. It says in the area or within the area, and it talks about a catastrophe. It's designed for a catastrophe
I see.
specifically.
Okay. So we're going back to this catastrophe from the other show. It's all
Correct.
falling under catastrophe,
Well,
which we aren't even sure that's what you can define what's happening right now.
yeah, it's
as.
not a catastrophe.
Okay.
It's a pandemic.
If you didn't watch our last show, watch it, because you talked about that and it was very good.
Yeah, I
what you
run
had
in
to say.
circles a lot, but it all comes
It was
back
all
around. Yeah.
very good what you had to say last show.
The fact is, we have a judicial branch, an executive branch, and a legislative branch.
Okay.
And the governor cannot, under any circumstances, create law.
Okay.
And he certainly can't suspend the law. If there are certain provisions like that one section under 418, but that's designed for if there's a tornado or a hurricane, it goes through and destroys a lot of property.
Got it.
It's for them to set up a perimeter and decide who can go in or who can't go in.
Okay.
It's designed for a catastrophe.
And if we're not in session right now, which we're not, our legislature's not in session, how would he call them back for an emergency session, or how would he get? I'm wondering how that would work. But anyway, I don't think we have a lot of time to talk about that. But let's come back next week and talk more about this. I'd like to see where we end up with this.
Sure.
And maybe you can also look at some other things that might be a little bit suspect, that you feel is a little bit suspect. And meanwhile, I'd love to have somebody from the other side of the view come on and talk as well. And maybe both of us, all three of us, will be on. Rodney, thank you. Do you have anything last minute to say before we shut this down? Because we like to talk, both of us, I think.
Yeah, not really.
All right, thank you. Rodney Ramsey, I'm Rita Cook with Politics and How It Affects You.